to the Wild Wisdom Podcast with Dr. Patricia Mills. I'm Dr. Patricia. This podcast is for people who want to transform their health, restore their hormones, and reconnect to their body's natural wisdom. Hi, I'm Dr. Patricia. I'm a Canadian medical doctor, published author, internationally recognized researcher, and passionate advocate for your health. Here, we'll explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science, distilling the essence of true health into practical steps you can take. Wild wisdom is instinctive knowledge in action. Thanks for making this part of your day.
I've been covering this, 7 ways that our body becomes imbalanced, and therefore we have difficulty maintaining, achieving and maintaining our ideal weight. And just to summarize what we have covered so far, those 7, the 6 that I've already covered are chemical confusion from processed foods, hormonal imbalances, inflammation, toxins tipping point, digestive issues, lymphatic congestion, and the 7th topic that we're going to talk about now is infections. And this is kind of an interesting one because I put it in its own category because there are a few specific infections that can occur that can lead to it. And then there's like subtle imbalances in the population in our bacteria in our body that can lead to weight gain. So why don't we start with that? So the microbiome, as I've talked about before, is the community of organisms living on the lining of your gut that help you break down your food. And also they help you to make your hormones. They help to, they interact with your immune system and tell your immune system if they should get ready for an infection or not. Like it's so many things that it does. It's kind of hard to list them all. Research has shown that certain populations of bacteria promote the environment in the body to be the ideal weight or to be overweight. And it's very fascinating because it's like kind of an emerging field of research where there is a possibility that someone could be given like a certain probiotic and that would support them to lose weight. Now, I would say that that's still a bit of a Band-Aid solution because it's like, what caused the population of microorganisms to become unbalanced in the first place? If there's like a certain balance that's healthy for your body and then it becomes unbalanced and you need a probiotic to like reset it, then it's like, well, what was the root cause? And the root cause usually is like the chemical confusion from processed foods. And I should add, it's so funny when you're going through these complex topics, when you damage the microbiome, it's, medications can damage the microbiome, like anti-inflammatories like naproxen, ibuprofen, anti-heartburn, anti-reflux medications can really affect the balance of the microbiomes. Eating too much sugar, too many fast carbs can cause certain things like yeast to overgrow, right? So, and some children are being born with this issue because when you're born elective cesarean section, you actually have, you're born with a microbiome that is not what it would have been like if you had been born vaginally, which is where a lot of our microbiome gets put into us, is as we come down the birth canal. And breastfeeding, like having the mouth to the breast contact also introduces certain organisms into our body from our mother's body, and that natural process of creating our microbiome really sets the stage, at least for like the first few years of life. And looks like research is showing that it could even be lifelong, although I do believe that everything is fixable, but you have to be intentional and work to fix it, that kind of thing. So if your children were born cesarean section or you weren't able to breastfeed for whatever reason, this is not cause to become anxious, although I do understand that will probably be your reaction at first and for a little while. However, what you can feel is empowered because if you've noticed that the health of your children is not optimal, there are many things that you can do to help that microbiome kind of rebalance itself, But if you're not aware of that, you might not act on it, and then you might just continue to experience those side effects over time, those signs of not optimal health, and that can be very frustrating as a parent. You can feel like a sense of hopelessness and powerlessness, and that's what I find is really tough. So knowing that there are things you can do, I find can be very empowering, but you have to know the why first, right? So having a certain healthy microbiome and how you fix that is like, again, avoiding the processed foods, avoiding the fast carbs, making sure you're not exposing yourself to those toxins, whether it's from the processed foods or from your water, because, and pesticides, because pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, they kill organisms, and that's what we're trying to protect, is certain healthy organisms within our body, right? And there are certain herbs like oregano, garlic, that have been shown to cut down the bad guys and promote health of the good guys. So there are ways that you can intentionally positively affect the microbiome. Another thing that sometimes is under-recognized are, so that's like an issue of colonization, like, what are the colonies of the bacteria and viruses and fungi and parasites in your body, and are they in good balance? And then you have issues with like infection. So for example, parasites. Some individuals have parasites, and because we have such a global world traveling kind of culture, lots of people have been to Africa or East Asia or, all these different tropical countries where parasites tend to hang out, the Americas and South Americas and that kind of stuff. And some individuals, and even locally, right? It's not like parasites only hang out in those areas, but, oftentimes we talk about tropical kind of conditions. And some individuals get parasites, and if they're not recognized, they could contribute to things like weight loss and difficulty maintaining your ideal weight in that way. Okay. And again, if you have an infection from something like a parasite and your body reacts with an inflammation, then that can cause the inflammatory weight gain. Or the inflammation from any kind of infection, like some people speak about things like mold, right? Like if you're exposed to mold and you have a reaction against that, and that's an inflammation reaction, then you can have issues with putting on weight as a result of that. So hidden infections is something that, a lot of holistic practitioners do take into account and consider. And oftentimes all that is needed is to create, the terrain of health, like create healthy tissues through all of those things we've already talked about, like proper diet, hormonal balancing, avoid toxins, improve detoxification, avoid damaging things like processed foods or not organic wine or coffees and that kind of stuff. In some cases, though, those infections may require specific treatment, right? Like a parasite or like a bacterial infection, they might require a very specific kind of herbal regimen, and in some cases, even like a medication. And one, for example, that's very hard is yeast overgrowth, right? So some people have what's called candidiasis, and that can be experienced as like funny rashes that crop up like around your hair, around your neck. It can kind of migrate, like can be under your breasts or in your private parts. You can get the classic yeast, but it can also be like yeast infection in your private parts, but it can also like show up as like, toenail infections or skin infections or rashes. And that certainly causes a certain degree of inflammation in the body. And makes it really hard for the body to be in optimal health and maintain its ideal state of health, which can be reflected as in difficulty in maintaining and achieving your ideal weight. Each of these 7 topics, you can do a deep dive into each of them, but I wanted to make sure I painted the picture that explains why it is that this idea of calorie counting can work in the short term, but most often doesn't work in the long term, okay? Because you're not actually addressing the root cause of the problem. So it's like, yes, if you're eating a whole foods diet, not processed, hydrating well, and you're simply eating too much, like your portions are too large, then portion control can be helpful. But most people aren't in that camp. They are, most people are, inadvertently, unknowingly eating the processed foods, the fast carbs, have problems with inflammation, problems with the digestion, problems with toxins tipping point. They may have issues with their lymphatic system or infections. Those are kind of, less common, but had to be mentioned to be complete. The hormonal imbalance is big for a lot of people, particularly women, but also men. And our set weight is controlled by hormones. It's not controlled by calories. And they've even shown how if you go on a low calorie diet for a long period of time, what happens is your body readjusts its set point so that even at that low calorie intake, you go back to a certain weight, which is why a lot of people, after a while on a low calorie diet will just find their weight creeping back up again because they haven't actually mastered their hormones that are controlling your weight set point. And now they've messed up with their hormones because if you deprive your body of calories too much for too long, your body systems will start to kind of conserve energy and not function as well. So you can develop problems with your thyroid hormone as a result of this caloric deprivation, and that will cause you to have thyroid imbalances, which could cause you to gain weight again, right? So if your goal is achieving your ideal weight and maintaining it over the long term, then counting calories is not the way to go. It's all these other ways. So for me, for example, the way that I maintain my ideal weight is that I do not eat ultra-processed foods, okay, period. I mean, yes, there's the very occasional circumstance where it's like a social situation and I don't want to be the awkward person creating an embarrassment. However, I don't eat chips, I don't even eat dark chocolate anymore, but that was more because the cacao was irritating my digestive system. So I learned about that and I avoid it for that reason. And then I don't eat fast carbs, except for I will have once a week a organic sourdough pasta made by a company called Kaslo, Kaslo, and this is in Canada. So you might need to look for something locally for yourself, but it's organic, it has no preservatives in it, sourdough fermented, pasta. And then once every 3 weeks or so as a family, we'll have pizza, but I will get it from a local pizza place that has sourdough bread. And I'm always on the lookout for organic sourdough because again, avoiding those pesticides for me is really, really important. And then I'll have the Ezekiel bread if I want to have my toast in the morning. I have lots of vegetables cooked because my digestive system doesn't do well with a lot of raw vegetables. It's okay, but over time it really doesn't do well. I eat I aim for about 8 tablespoons of olive oil a day, kind of like the Mediterranean diet target to make sure I get enough healthy fats. I have, small amounts of happy animal protein. I try to incorporate that once a day. I soak and dehydrate my nuts so that they're sprouted so they don't irritate my digestive tract. I soak my oats for my overnight oats for breakfast. And, I don't use anti-inflammatories for pain control. I have other natural supplements I use for anti-inflammatory effects for myself and for my clients. So I'm very attentive to that. And I go to the infrared sauna 2 times a week. I do rebounding, which is great for lymphatic decongestion, twice a week. I do Qigong and breath work to calm my nervous system. I meditate every day. So, and all of those things are kind of are contributing to my overall health. And there's so much else that I do. I try to get outside in the morning within 30 minutes of rising to get that morning sunshine in my eyes, which helps my hormones be in balance for the rest of the day. It's just all of these things. And you could think, wow, that's a lot. How do you do that? That seems so effortful. And what I can tell you is that it's not something that you go from 0 to hero. It's not from 0 to 100%, It's it's taken me, a few years now to get to this point where that's just my lifestyle. I just went from one lifestyle to another lifestyle. And it's not, certain actions were let go of and replaced by other actions. And sure, some of it is a little bit more effortful, but, for example, soaking my nuts, and dehydrating them, it only takes 2 seconds to put water in a jar and nuts in it. And then another minute to drain the water and put it on a glass baking sheet and stick it in the oven. really it's not so much that it's effort, it's just that you have to plan in advance. I have to think like, okay, I'm getting low on my nut supply. Like I'll make enough for a week to 2 weeks at a time. And then when I notice it's getting low, I have to do it. The action, it's not long. It doesn't take long, but it's something I have to do. Same thing with my overnight soaked oats. I just have to think I'm going to have oats tomorrow morning. So let me put the oats in water with my probiotic, Saccharomyces boulardii that I use to make that. And if you're wondering about that recipe, in the captions, you can check out the link for my free ebook, How to Balance Your Hormones Naturally. And I have the recipe for my overnight soaked oats that are fermented with this probiotic that you can find in any health food store. It's very common and it's wonderful. It's really also good for gut health. So it's a great one to go with. And you just kind of pick one thing and you add it on, and you pick another thing and you add it on, and you kind of let go of what doesn't serve you, take on a new thing. And all of a sudden you're kind of shifting away from the actions that were harming your health towards the actions that weren't. And the thing is, every action is either harming your health or supporting it. It's never neutral, right? And all it is just being very like mindful of like, what are the actions that I'm doing? And is it supporting my health? And is it from information that is outdated, right? Because this is the thing. What I was taught in medical school and what a lot of the like the standard, like cultural kind of standard American diet way of eating, North American, is actually not working. And the proof is in the population. People are not healthy, generally speaking. There are some people who are. And then this is the thing, like, just like with my dad, who was diagnosed with ALS, he was a runner, an Ironman. Like anyone who knew him would have said that he was a very healthy guy. And he still got diagnosed with this condition with no family history, like no genetic predisposition for this. And it got triggered by something he was doing. And sure enough, he was on an acid blocker for his medication, a proton pump inhibitor, right? Which would decrease his stomach acid production and negatively impact his microbiome. He ate a lot of processed soy foods, like all those soy burgers, soy hot dogs. And I'll do a separate thing on soy, but like, you need to properly prepare your soy. And soy is a very heavily sprayed crop, so you need to have organic soy if you're going to have soy. And he did a lot of late night snacking on fast carbs. Like he would eat well during the day, and then at nighttime, he would just like open up a bag of chips and eat it all, or a chocolate, or, you know what I mean? Like just a lot of those things. And so he didn't know that all of these things were like little hits to the system, and he over-exercised because he was an Ironman and he loved to exercise, and that's great. I'm not saying don't do that, but there's a lot of overtraining and under-recovering that happens in this population of athletes, and that creates a significant hormonal imbalance, right? And he also came from the generation where, it was like eating margarine, like those vegetable oil butters, and he enjoyed eating out at restaurants, and, who doesn't? So it's not one thing. It's a compounded effect, right? And I can't point at one thing and say, this was the thing that had like a man who was, for all intents and purposes, very healthy looking guy, become very sick, like terminally ill sickness, right? And that could be, as I said, it could be cancer for some people, Parkinson's, ALS, multiple sclerosis, and, all the autoimmune conditions, like, it just so happened that his genetic predisposition coupled with his triggers manifested in the expression of ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And again, like we've been focusing on weight, but the weight is just a signal. And he was a pretty good weight for a period of his life. And then he started to gain weight around the belly, which was so unusual because he did exercise so hard. And so that was also like a little tip that he was having issues with his like microbiome, his digestion, his inflammation, and that kind of stuff, right? In retrospect. So I hope you found this helpful. If I think of any other reasons, I'm sure they'll pop into my head for like what can affect your weight. And again, weight is when you're not your ideal weight. Again, remember at the beginning of this, I said that it's not that we're trying to be slim. It's that we're trying to be the proper weight for our constitution. And some people are meant to have a larger constitution than others. And you don't want to be too underneath that set point and too above that set point, right? Because that's just a reflection of the inner health. So when you improve your health, the ideal weight is just a consequence. It's like a side effect of that, right? It's a bonus, and it's an amazing bonus. Like, I won't lie. I love the fact that I know exactly what I need to do to maintain my ideal weight. Even after having had 2 children and after having had my first, I didn't know all these things and I was gaining weight and I could not, for the life of me, get it off, and I was exercising, I was eating, and it was just becoming so exhausting because it was starting to be restrictive. Like I was having to exercise so much and really watch what I'm eating. And now, I don't even really, I eat, I try to pay attention to how full my stomach is, like that 80% full, right? Kind of rule of thumb, eat until you're 80% full. And as long as it's whole foods and I'm having my right amount of, my palm-sized portion of Happy Animal protein, once a day, plus properly preparing all of my other plant protein sources of food, because that's how I get protein from plants, is by properly preparing them. If you don't properly prepare them, you just can't get that protein from them as well. And working on my digestive system, so whatever protein I do have, I absorb, right? And within those parameters of the whole foods and the proper amount of food for my tummy and the right amount of vegetables versus protein versus fat and the right kind of fats, I just I eat for pleasure, And sure, there are some things that I miss, but you get addicted to good health too. That's the thing. Sometimes you need to get so darn healthy and you feel so good that when you do go to eat those old comfort foods like a bread or a cheese or whatever, it doesn't even bring pleasure anymore. It brings pleasure to the tongue, it tastes good. But inside you're you know what? I don't want to give up that feeling of amazing health that I've achieved. So I'm going to acknowledge that this food tastes darn good. It tastes really good. And I'm just not going to go back to that way of eating consistently, right? As a regular kind of way of eating, because I like the way I feel healthy better. That's overall a more important feeling for me. And yes, there are times that I backslide and I find myself starting to eat certain foods that don't agree with me. And sure enough, my body will eventually tell me and be listen, smarten up or else you're going to end up going down that road again. And I just really didn't like going down that road of poor health. And that's often enough for me to just really take a step back and be okay, let's get back, let's get back to that lifestyle that was serving me so well, that I know serves me so well. And so my goal is to go into menopause, and have very beautifully stable weight, beautifully stable energy, mood, just having all of those organ systems working so well that it's such a lovely transition. And then feeling really good on the other side in menopause, and avoiding that kind of what seems to be very common for women these days, which is that menopausal weight gain or post-baby weight gain, all those hormonally related weight gains or those toxins tipping point weight gains, right? Or that inflammation tipping point weight gain. There is an age-related aspect to this in that over time, these issues build up over time, and you start to see the effects playing out, but it's getting to the root causes and addressing them and reversing them and getting them out of the way. So again, the body can do its job, which is to use its original blueprint to create your vibrant health. Okay. So I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to catching you on the next show. Bye.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast, Wild Wisdom with Dr. Patricia Mills. If you like this podcast, please take the time to like and subscribe, and please feel free to leave any comments and look below for the contact information if you want to connect with me directly. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, or night.
Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast is not a substitute for a professional care doctor or other qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you are looking for help in your journey, it is important that you seek out a qualified health practitioner. If you would like to work with Dr. Patricia for her expert health transformation guidance, please email her at info@drpatriciamills.com to book a discovery call. You can also find Dr. Patricia on Instagram at Dr. Patricia Mills and Facebook at Wild Wisdom for Women with Dr. Patricia Mills, MD. For access to all of Dr. Patricia's educational videos and more amazing perks, consider becoming a Patreon member. Links are in the description of this episode. It is important to have an expert in your corner that can help you make the changes you crave, especially when it comes to your health.